off at the beginning here going over a toolbox build. I apologize ahead of time for the echoey sound. We are in my home office right now, which doesn't have the best acoustics. But I didn't do too much talking during the video and had to do a voiceover because I ended up losing quite a bit of what I thought was recording at the time, but my camera ran out of memory during the process. So yeah, went together pretty smoothly. Was able to practice drilling, dimpling, riveting. You will hear me mention something about the bucking bar or a rivet that I messed up with a bucking bar. Actually, thinking back on it, it was a rivet that I removed. I wanted to make sure to practice removing rivets from the toolbox versus a plane. So it's one that I made a mistake on. So yeah, let's get to it and you'll see the finalized product. So I ran out of memory when I built this toolbox here. Just wanted to do a quick recap of what the build looked like. So you'll see I went after it with a Scotch-Brite pad afterwards. I scratched it a couple of times in the process, but that's the whole point of these learning type projects. So it worked out pretty well. One thing I would note is on the back side, the hinges, I'm not sure if they're smaller than the original ones that used to be sent in the past or what, but you'll see it's pretty much hanging on there for dear life. So if I was to build another one, I would make sure to watch out on the clearances there. And then the other thing I'd watch out for is on the inside of the hinge. You see it has a little bit of a resistance point here, actually where it doesn't want to open. A little bit of a resistance point. What happened was when I dimpled the top portion here, when I match drilled and dimpled it, it seems like the dimples pulled it in even closer, so the clearance got really, really short on it. So give yourself a little bit of room there, maybe a 1/16 of an inch or so just for clearance. But yeah, overall, learned quite a bit during the process. Pretty happy with the way my rivets turned out. This one got a little bit goofy when I went after him with a bucking bar. But overall, pretty happy with the whole project. It will store things, and that's the whole purpose. All right, today is day one of the actual build. We'll be starting on section 6 of the vertical stabilizer, which will be this hunk of parts here and then some. You'll see the parts plastic wrap is pretty janky looking. I inventoried a couple of days ago and had to undo all of the plastic wrap and inventory all the individual parts and then put it all back. So occasionally you'll see in the frame possibly basically multiples of these kits over there, up there, and skins over behind the camera over there. But yeah, really there was nothing missing when I did the full inventory. There was one baggie of rivets that was missing a label, but I was able to find out what it was pretty easily. And then a couple of parts on back order. But I'll quit talking and we'll get to building. So these two parts here are the same number now. What we'll be doing, they're both the VS1014. What we'll be doing is making a left and right portion. So these part numbers will turn into VS1014L and 1014 right, depending on their location. So one of the things I'm going up against here is I don't have a bandsaw, and I'm not wanting to buy any more tools. So I'm going to try to do this just with a thin cutoff wheel on an angle grinder. But to do that, I have to throw this in the vise, and I am marking it on the wrong side. So let's just transfer the measurements to the other side, and hopefully I don't screw anything up. Alright, so I got it nice and close to the line. I stayed a little bit away from it. Because I can bring this back in with a Scotch-Brite wheel afterwards. So I'd rather leave a little bit more material and have to buff it off later, or sand it off later than overly cut it. Cut into my duct tape. The reason I put that duct tape there is I don't have any kind of soft jaws for it. So I figured a couple layers of Gorilla tape. That stuff is super, super heavy duty. And it shouldn't leave too much residue behind, I don't think. All right, we are back the following day. Last night I went through and did this cut here on both of these pieces. Next step will be clicking them to this spar here and getting them all drilled out. So we have to drill the holes in the backside, line all those through, and prepare for the next step. The next step involves a couple of parts that I forgot that are on back order. You'll see this main part here is what I was mentioning, what we'll be drilling into or drilling from using the holes that are to match. These are the two parts here that I trimmed down last night. And then these parts here, that one, and that one are all on back order. I totally forgot until just now. I went back through the packing list and found those three items were all on back order. So at least we'll get this whole thing here match drilled, cleco together, and possibly move on to another step in the process if I can find something that I can complete without it being on back order. All right, let's get to it. I called out certain ones that you have to give special attention to just to make sure that it's perfectly perpendicular to it. There's a couple of mounting points here that need to be perfectly straight through, so I'm marking them just as a reminder to make sure that I don't screw those up. All right, did about every four, and now I get to go back through and do all of them. The nice thing, I'm sure someone's going to ask here, but the nice thing is all of these are final size holes, which is super, super nice. I didn't notice anything in my kit that had any orange markings on it, so all should be final size, which will make things a whole lot smoother sailing. Yeah, let's go back through. We've got to do all of them, and then click on them all, get them deburred, and we'll wrap up at the end here. So you'll hear me saying cleco a lot during this build. So those of you who don't know what a cleco is, these are pretty neat. So what it does is it'll sit into, here, let me see if I can show you. So this front piece here is, I'm not sure if it'll focus, let's see. Yeah, it's focusing, mostly. Anyways, you'll see that main front piece is the actual width of the hole. And then it has these two other pieces coming in behind it that go around it. And you'll see as it goes out, it stays about the same size, and then as it retreats back in, it widens. So what this does is it will make its way through a hole and widen, and it works as a temporary fastener. So I'll be using a lot of these during the build. All right, so here's what I'm saying. So this part I'm looking for, VS1008, I found that here. So luckily within each individual kit, these are all alphabetical. So anyways, go up to here, VS1008. So that belongs in the previous page kit, which is going to be sub-kit number 5. So the way I ordered or set up the garage is I try to keep it somewhat orderly. So I think I put all of my kits that would fit 1 through 8 on the shelving here. So let's see, sub-kit 4, and no, I did not put them in order. That would make things way too easy, but at least I know it's on the shelf somewhere over here. Sub-kit number 5. So a lot of builders, and not necessarily on this section here, but I know a lot of builders will leave this tape on for as long as possible. I don't think I'll be doing that with the skins and whatnot. The tape is here to protect it from scratches. But I've heard horror stories or seen horror stories online where if the build takes longer than expected, or it gets wet for any reason, whatever happens, like the tape can get, or the sticker material can get stuck on it just from being old. Or corrosion can start developing underneath it. So I am just gonna deal with it. I don't plan on having a fully polished plane. If I do scratch things, I'll hit it with a coat of primer. I went and bought some self-etching primer the other day over at Ace. This stuff here, I won't be priming the whole plane. I know a lot of people will prime the full inside, every single individual piece. I live in Phoenix. It's not too salty and humid here. It's a dry heat, right? So we don't plan on spending too much time out in beachy areas, so I don't think it's worth the extra weight, the extra time to prime everything. But I'll use that primer wherever the plans call for it, or wherever I do scratch through the protective coating that already exists on the aluminum. And yes, I have a space heater in here. This morning it was 44 degrees, and that is like the Arctic for Phoenix. So two things. Wanted to go over something real quick here, since I know probably more family and friends will be watching this than builders at this point here. So I kind of want to educate you on the process. So the reason why, first of all, we'll do this. The reason why this is here, this is probably what makes most of the vibrating noise from this thing. I think, first of all, the stone wheel is, I think, out of balance. It's a cheapo wheel. But then this plastic thing, it dances around like no other. The reason I'm leaving it on is because I've already done it once, where I'll be going up against this Scotch-Brite wheel here. This is not a stone, it's a Scotch-Brite wheel. I'll be going up against that and I'll get a little bit happy. And I've also read other horror stories online of other people severely gouging their aluminum with the stone. So I'm leaving this here. This can work as I'm fine with that getting destroyed or whatever, but if it prevents me from having to order another part or brushing it up against a stone, I'll be happy. But the reason why we're supposed to deburr every part in the plane is you will see here, I'm not sure if you can see a jagged edge. Let me see if I can get behind this GoPro here. So you can kind of see a little bit of a raised lip on that inside. You can hear it on my skin there. Anywho, that is no bueno for planes. So there's a couple of points where you just need to have that not be there. Number one is supposedly aluminum, if it does have, like you'll see here, any interesting, really deep inconsistencies in the edge, that can eventually turn into, helps if I have it in frame, that can eventually turn into a failure point over time. It could become stressed. I don't know, I'm not an engineer. Anyways, they say to remove it because it can make it weaker in the long term. And then also this part here, when it's laying up against other parts, it's going to be rubbing the whole time and possibly digging into that other piece of aluminum, wearing through the protective coating on it, could be a spot for corrosion. You really don't want it. So you got to make sure to deburr everything. So part of the, or not part of the, but a lot of the time in the build is going to be spent deburring every single part, because you'll see, I don't know how many hundreds of parts we have here just for the actual empennage. All of them have to be deburred since all the machining leaves behind that from before. So yeah, so that bench grinder there makes quick work of the outside, and then on the inside it'll be a combination of sandpaper, Scotch-Brite, yeah, whatever it takes to get this stuff deburred. So we'll get this done. I won't be able to finish the part here today, but at least I'll be able to get this deburred and ready for the next step. Then it looks like it should be smooth sailing once I have those other back order parts. So the next video will probably be jumping ahead in the manual here to whatever other sub kit I can finish while waiting on these parts to be come back in back order. So let's get to deburring. All right, we are back again on the voiceover. I had mentioned earlier that I picked up that primer. Good thing I did. I ended up actually scratching this item here, or this part that I was working on. But no worries, went over it with Scotch-Brite, covered it with a coat of primer. I know I'll probably end up having to primer it again if it does get scratched in the future. But yeah, checked in on the back-ordered items, and looks like there'll be quite a delay there, so I'll likely just continue forward with the project, just won't be able to rivet anything just yet. So the videos may be a little bit slower than I'd anticipated, but hopefully I'll have another one out here shortly.